Xavier, the keeper of the whispering wind. A hush fell over the vast expanse of the enchanted forest as the sun lowered its golden face behind the towering mountains, painting the sky in hues of blush and lavender. Nestled at the heart of this wilderness, an ancient, gnarled tree spiraled up, reaching towards the ever-changing canvas of the heavens. Within its hollowed trunk resided Xavier, the keeper of the whispering wind. On an eve, when the stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across a black velvet cloak, Xavier sat in solitude, his wrinkled fingers lightly touching the taut string of a handmade harp. As the soft melody hummed through the air, the winds danced around him, carrying whispers from far and wide, murmuring tales of joy and sorrow, triumph and defeat, love and loss. The harmony of this night shattered when a sudden gust of wind tore through the forest, bending the mightiest trees and shaking the smallest leaves. The whispering wind howled, not with its usual hushed lullabies, but with a voice that spoke of turmoil and chaos. Xavier, alarmed by this unprecedented tumult, listened intently. Among the chaotic whispers, Xavier discerned a tale of turmoil. Zephyr, the wind spirit, had been captured by the ruthless king of the northern frost, Oswald. The king sought to gain control over the elements, disrupt the balance of nature, and impose an eternal winter upon the world. Xavier knew the dire consequences if the balance of the elements remained disrupted. Acknowledging the urgency of the situation, Xavier, usually a reclusive hermit, set out on a journey beyond the sanctuary of his tree. Xavier's voyage first took him across the Babbling brook, whose waters sang songs of ages past. Using the language of the winds, Xavier urged the brook to carry him to the base of the Whispering Mountains. The brook, understanding the urgency in the wind keeper's voice, formed a gentle wave that carried Xavier to his destination. Next, he had to cross the Whispering Mountains. The winds were violent here, sharp as knives against Xavier's weathered skin. Each step was a battle against the blustering gales. Xavier summoned all his strength, harnessing the howling winds, asking them to guide him rather than hinder him. Understanding the gravity of the request, the winds relented, turning from obstructive adversaries into aiding allies, leading Xavier through the treacherous mountain path. At the mountain's peak, Xavier found himself before a cavernous opening. Inside, a beast with scales like polished obsidian and eyes like molten gold slumbered. This was Reginald, the guardian of the gate, the last obstacle before reaching Oswald's icy kingdom. Xavier, with a calm and steady voice, spoke to the beast. "Reginald, guardian of the gate, the elements stand on the brink of chaos. I seek an audience with King Oswald." The dragon's golden eyes flickered with understanding and, in a deep, resonant voice, he responded, "Go forth, Xavier, keeper of the whispering wind." Once inside Oswald's frosty fortress, Xavier found Zephyr, the wind spirit, trapped inside a cage of enchanted ice. Oswald, upon seeing Xavier, laughed, a sound that echoed like thunder across the icy expanse. "Old man," Oswald sneered, "do you think your wind whispers can free Zephyr from my clutches?" Xavier looked at Oswald, his gaze steady and unwavering, and responded, "No, King Oswald, the winds do not whisper for my benefit, but for the balance of the world. Release Zephyr, and restore the harmony of the elements." Oswald scoffed at this, dismissing Xavier with a wave of his hand. "Why should I relinquish such power? With Zephyr at my command, I shall impose an eternal winter upon the world." As Oswald finished speaking, a gust of wind, colder than any Xavier had ever felt, blasted through the hall. However, Xavier, the keeper of the whispering wind, stood tall, his expression resolute. Xavier plucked a single note from his harp, and a gentle breeze began to stir. The note carried the tales of every leaf that had rustled, every bird that had soared, and every seed that had found a new home on the wind. It told of the joy the winds brought, the freedom they symbolized, and the life they sustained. It conveyed the importance of balance, the necessity of change, and the dangers of stagnation. The note hung in the air, and an overwhelming silence fell upon the hall. Then, slowly, the icy cage around Zephyr began to vibrate, resonating with the music. Cracks began to form on the surface of the enchanted ice, growing and spreading until, with a resounding shatter, the cage broke, freeing Zephyr. The wind spirit, once trapped, now danced freely around the hall, her laughter a gentle whisper on the breeze. The winds outside softened, their howls of turmoil changing to sighs of relief. Oswald, taken aback by this turn of events, could only watch as Zephyr, free and untamed, flew out of his fortress, followed by Xavier, the keeper of the whispering wind. And so, Xavier returned to the enchanted forest, his task complete. The winds, once again, danced around him, whispering tales of far-off places. But this time, they also carried a new tale, a tale of an old hermit who, when the balance of the elements was disrupted, ventured out and used his gift to restore harmony to the land. A tale of Xavier, the keeper of the whispering wind.